Barbecue chicken alert! Barbecue chicken alert!
If you ask any virtual reality user what their dream is for the future of VR, whether they're an enthusiast
Steven here.
or one of those kids who just got a quiz for Christmas, they'll give you the same answer. Full dive VR. Your actions in a simulated world controlled entirely by your mind. The field of virtual reality is one that has been rapidly advancing, with new, lighter, more powerful headsets coming out year after year. Yet the idea of full dive doesn't seem to be getting any closer. Still relegated to media like Sword Art Online and The Matrix. But is that true? I went down the rabbit hole of finding out what it would take to make full dive VR possible, and I think I'm ready to share my findings with you. So, strap in, because it might be closer than you think. I wanted to start with what full dive VR actually is, in case you're not familiar. At present, it's a concept for a virtual reality experience in which you are completely immersed. Your consciousness is transferred into some virtual world where your body stays still. This would require some sort of brain-computer interface, BCI for short, which would simulate all your senses in this simulation while your body stays back in your goon cave. Currently, VR works in a much more simple way. The headset essentially places two screens in front of your eyes, each displaying a similar but slightly different image. These slight differences create what's called a stereoscopic 3D image, tricking your brain into believing what you're seeing is 3D. All the while, motion sensors in both the headset and the controllers in your hands track your movement in order to correctly map them into whatever VR application you may be in. As you can imagine, having a massive brick strapped to your face and being able to run into walls in the real world isn't the most immersive thing ever. Not to mention, you don't have most of your senses like touch, taste, and smell integrated into the experience at all. So, with all that said, we've got a long way to go, right? Well, let's see. To grossly oversimplify how BCIs work, they capture brain activity through an implant connected to the brain. They translate the activity from the brain, passing it through some algorithms, before finally sending it as converted output to some external device like a computer or, fingers crossed, some virtual reality world. They are currently being developed by three major companies. The one you've all heard of, Neuralink, a New York-based competitor, Synchron, and China's Miracle Neuroscience. For many years, developments in this field were few and far between, normally only creating headlines instead of actual improvement. Over recent years, there has been considerable private investment, and it has served to accelerate the work these companies are doing. In 2024, there is currently 35 people living with brain implants, and a lot more clinical trials going on to test the usability of things like computer control. Companies are keeping most of the details hidden from the public eye as they try all this stuff out, but we do have a bit of insight on how it actually works. Neuralink has been the most public about their successes. They have had 3 volunteers who have received their implant, the N1. This is made of multiple fine electrode threads inserted directly into the brain through a hole drilled in the skull. If you ever saw those headlines about a guy playing video games with his mind, this is how it was done. Noland Arbau, butchered that, their first volunteer received the N1 and has shown that he's able to glide a cursor across a screen in 2 dimensions and click. This lets him play games like Civilization and online chess. Synchron and Miracle are a lot more secretive about their developments, only sharing vague details such as the fact several people have received their implants and that they are going through studies to make it possible to sell specific versions of their devices. As our understanding of the brain and how it interacts with computers grows, it's expected that these devices can transition from being demonstrations to actual products. But I know what you're saying. Civilization? Chess? You want to bang your anime waifu in full immersive VR. So let's talk about visual BCI. Visual BCI is a subfield of normal BCI that similarly is still very much in the early stages and is advancing rapidly with tons of clinical trials. But before I get carried away, I should probably explain what visual BCI actually looks like in the real world today. Because it's not like people are out here projecting games of CSGO directly into their skulls. Right now, the signals these systems pick up are super coarse. Basically patterns of brain activity that correspond to things like focusing your attention, recognizing a flashing pattern, or imagining a simple shape. It's nowhere near the level of decoding full images or complex thoughts, but it's improving way faster than anyone expected even a few years ago. While not at the level of rapid advancement that we've seen with things like AI, it's still very fast progression and hopefully will lead to something serious very soon. The important thing is that we've already proven you can pull useful visual information straight from brain activity, which is the first ugly baby step towards anything resembling full dive VR. But what does it actually do? It allows for the control of devices using brain activity related to visual stimuli, either by imagining what you want to see or reacting to what you see. Well, great. That sounds like exactly what we need. It's common for these interfaces to have small, lightweight VR-like devices over the user's eyes, making it theoretically possible to have some VR world in front of the user and having all their actions within it being carried out simply via thought. I can imagine it now. Millions of Discord mods assembling in their stinking, stain-covered beds, harassing women online without ever having to raise a finger. Beautiful. As I said, it's still very much in the experimental stage, but as the VR space grows and investors see return on their investment, it's not crazy to think that in 5 to 10 years, we could have something serious in this space. I think it would be remiss of me to only talk about how I want to fuck Tracer in all immersive VR. So I want to talk about some of the other applications.
I don't know.
One of the main focuses of BCI is its ability to help patients with disabilities. People with limited motor control have serious trouble communicating and interacting with computers or other devices. These interfaces offer a method to massively improve their quality of life. It can mean independence and even autonomy for some. Think about some skeletal assistant controlled entirely by the brain that could help with paralysis from the neck down. We could possibly see athletes training skills in these VR simulations using only their brains, which would be extremely useful during off-seasons or periods of injury. I say this because some have used lucid dreaming as a method of training, which of course only uses the brain, not the body. Similar thing for musicians, artists, people learning to drive. The list of useful and helpful simulations that could be ran for people to learn and improve on things is seriously endless. It's no wonder that there is a lot of private funding going into these things. The return on investment could truly be massive if these things explode to the level of popularity that I believe to be possible.
Toby? Can I sleep with you?
I also want to talk about the problems and concerns that come with these devices. The first and most obvious one is
Hell nah, Jigsaw. I ain't putting a computer chip into my brain, no cap, for real, for real.
which is completely valid. As I briefly threw on screen earlier, monkeys have died from these implants during early animal trials, which is not exactly encouraging when getting an implant seems to be the prerequisite to this kind of technology. I think the way this is going to progress forward is some sort of overhead sensors that read brainwaves without requiring a direct implant in the brain, but I'm no engineer or neuroscientist, so I can't exactly speak to how possible this may be. But reading brainwaves externally is something we've been doing for a long time now, so I'd like to think it's possible. I'd also like to reiterate that all current people with BCIs appear to be healthy and are not suffering from any adverse effects, so who knows. The second main concern is one that we're already seeing with normal virtual reality: decreased human connection. If you've ever made the mistake of stepping into a VR chat lobby like I have, then you're probably well aware of the creatures and freaks that dwell in these places. Having some sort of online MMO a la Sword Art Online would likely be incredibly detrimental to people's social skills. Why go out and talk with real women when I can virtually bang some AI woman that never complains, disagrees, or talks back? Everyone lying in bed being fed a constant stream of dopamine without any consequences or hardship in their lives. It's a scary thought, and one that realistically is getting closer every day. So, with all this said, the goal is to improve the clarity of brain signals in hopes of allowing for you to think, run, attack that guy, spawn Tracer again, and have the thoughts become actions in the world. For that to happen, we just need better brain scanning, better VR devices, better BCIs, some way to keep simulations that take brain activity as input, to convert brain activity to actions, and implants that don't kill people. Sounds simple. At present, it still seems it'll be a few years or decades before we see anything serious. But it is getting closer every day, and it is a lot more realistic than many people think. So, is full dive VR possible? Man, I don't fucking know.